Hey everyone. You know how in English, when we want to say where something is, we have to juggle words like in, on, and at? Well, what if I told you that in Turkish, you can do all of that with just one super simple suffix? That's right. Today, we're cracking the code on the Turkish Locative case. It's an incredibly powerful and honestly really elegant system. And by the time we're done here, you're going to know exactly how it all clicks together. So here's our game plan for today. First up, we'll get a handle on what the locative case actually is and what it does. Then we're going to dive into the two simple but kind of genius rules that make it all work: vowel and consonant harmony. After that, we'll put it all into practice by asking and answering some common questions and see how it works with everyday verbs. And don't worry, you'll hear every single Turkish example with a clear native pronunciation. Okay, let's jump right into our first section. The big question is, how on earth does Turkish manage to replace three English words with just one little suffix? Well, let's find out. It really all boils down to this one simple question. How do you say where something is? Now, in English, we have to pick and choose from different prepositions depending on what we're talking about. For example, we'd say a book is on the table, or that a cat is in a box, and maybe that someone is waiting at the bus stop. See? On, in, at. That's three different words for three different kinds of locations. Turkish, however, has a much cleaner way of doing things. And here it is, the big secret. Instead of using separate words, Turkish just adds a little tag, a suffix, right onto the end of the noun. This is what's called the Bulunma Durumu, which literally translates to the locative case. And this one little suffix does the job of in, on, and at all in one go. Pretty cool, right? Okay, so if it's a suffix, how do you know which one to pick? Well, that brings us to our next section, and it all starts with this really cool and logical concept called vowel harmony. Now, this might look a little intimidating at first, but I promise you the logic is incredibly simple. It's all about something called vowel harmony. All you have to do is look at the very last vowel in the noun. If that last vowel is what we call a back vowel, that's a, o, or u, then you add da. So the word for school, okul, becomes okulda. On the other hand, if the last vowel is a front vowel, like e, I, or u, you add de. So the word for house, ev, becomes evde. It's that simple. The suffix just wants to harmonize with the word it's attached to. But wait, there's just one more piece to this puzzle. It turns out it's not just about the vowels. The consonants get to have a say too. And that brings us to our second big rule. You see, sometimes that D sound in the suffix will actually change to a T sound. And this isn't random at all. It's done purely to make the word easier and more natural to pronounce. It all depends on the very last consonant of the noun. So how in the world are you supposed to remember which consonants cause this change? Well, luckily, there's a fantastic little trick for this. You just need to remember a phrase, fıstıkçı şahap. It just means peanut seller şahap. Now, if you take just the consonants out of that phrase, fıstıkçı şahap, you get these 8 letters: F, S, T, K, Ç, Ş, H, and P. And here's the rule. If a word ends in any of these 8 consonants, the da in our suffix toughens up and becomes a t. So da becomes ta, and de becomes te. Let's see this in action. It'll make perfect sense. Take words like park or mutfak. They both end in K, which is one of our peanut seller consonants, right? So the da becomes a ta, and we get parkta and mutfakta. But now look at salon or okul. They end in L and N, which are not on our special list. So they just get the regular da sound, salonda and okulda. See how that works? Okay, we've got the rules down. Vowel harmony, consonant harmony, we're good. So now, let's see how this all comes to life in an actual conversation. We're going to use what we've learned to answer some super common questions. So let's zoom in on a couple of key question words. The first one is the one you'd expect, nerede, which simply means where. But then there's a really interesting one, kimde. Now, this literally translates to on whom. But in practice, it's how you ask who has something. The answers to both of these questions are going to use the locative suffixes we've just been talking about. All right, let's try a classic where question. Where are the students? In Turkish, that's öğrenciler nerede? And the answer is öğrenciler sınıfta. Let's break that down. The word for classroom is sınıf. Okay, rule 1. The last vowel is which is a back vowel, so we need a suffix with an a. Rule 2. It ends with the letter f, which is one of our fıstıkçı şahap consonants, so the d becomes a t. Put it together and you get ta, sınıfta. The students are in the classroom.
Okay, now for that other question, the one about who has something. To ask who has the pen, you literally say, the pen is on whom? Kalem kimde?
And the answer, kalem öğretmende. So, the word for teacher is öğretmen. Let's check our rules. The last vowel is e, which is a front vowel, so we need a suffix with an e. And it ends in n, which is not on our Fustık to Şahap list, so we just add de. Simple as that. The teacher has the pen. All right, for our last section, let's look at something that will make you sound way more natural. Certain verbs are just natural partners for the locative case. When you learn these pairings, your Turkish is going to sound so much more fluent. So let's look at a few examples. Take the verb oturmak, which means to sit. If you want to say, the child is sitting on the chair, you'd say, çocuk sandalyede oturuyor. And the question that goes with that is, naturally, nerede oturuyor? Where is he sitting? Or how about yaşamak, to live? You could say, ben İstanbul'da yaşıyorum. I live in Istanbul. And a quick note here, see that apostrophe? You always use one when you add a suffix to a proper name like a city. Finally, let's take alışveriş yapmak, to shop. I'm shopping at the market is, markette alışveriş yapıyorum. And the question? Nerede alışveriş yapıyorsun? Where are you shopping? It's always a question of where. And that's really all there is to it. When you boil it all down, it just comes back to those two fundamental rules. You've got vowel harmony. Is the last vowel a front or a back vowel? And you've got consonant harmony. Does the word end in one of those Fıstıkçı Şahap consonants? If you can remember those two things, you've pretty much mastered the Turkish locative case. It's just that logical. So to leave you with one final thought, let's put you on the spot. I'm going to ask you a question in Turkish, and I want you to try and answer it out loud, using the rules we just went over. Ready? Peki, sen şimdi neredesin? Okay, where are you right now? Give it a shot. Thanks so much for watching.